anybody else would say, oh, just trade it all and do this. I don't do that unless it is actually beneficial for you and you choose to do so. So, give me a call at 800-375-4188. With your current thinking, this is in from Dan, with your current thinking of the powers behind government, and this is the question about the silver that I had mentioned, seem to be orchestrating a deflationary depression much sooner than originally thought. Should people holding silver be looking for an opportunity in the near future to sell their silver and buy gold? You've stated many times that silver's performance during deflation is questionable and that there should be a time to exit silver when the inflationary forces are overcome by the deflationary forces.
Well, we don't know how silver is going to react in a deflationary environment. There's a shortage, or at least there has been, of silver produced and that consumed on a commercial basis. We don't know what effect that'll ultimately have on the market as far as consumption versus production. We don't know whether silver will become a factor like gold is as a monetary unit. It may happen. We're not going to know until we get there. And my feeling is, and I think Melody's is too, 20 or 30% in silver, and that's it. The rest in gold coins. And so I think you might be premature in switching out of silver, because I think between now and the end of the year, and it's very possible that we could have higher inflation. How long that's going to last remains to be seen. But that would be very instrumental in silver. It could send it up to $25 or maybe $50, maybe more, depending upon what gold did. So I think you should have some silver. If you're totally in silver and don't have gold and silver, gold coins, I think you should think about buying some gold coins with some of the proceeds from the sale of silver, if that's all you've got. So it depends upon what's suitable for you under the circumstances, and the best person to go to get an answer for that is Melody.
Thank you. And and again, just be careful about doing any types of trading. And here's a question, Bob. We get it a lot. We hear a lot of newsletter writers and other people talk about gold falling. This question's actually in from Tom about gold going to $650 to $750, and he wants to know what would be a scenario for gold to do that. He says, again, there's people calling for this kind of gold crash, and he himself doesn't understand how it could happen. But is there any scenario at all for gold to fall?
No, I don't see it. Let's assume that tomorrow a deflationary depression begins, and I have this meeting, and it's the devaluation and revaluation of currencies and default and domestically that countries officially devalue. Now, in that environment, if we take the 1930s, the value of everything will go down 60 to 95%. What will happen to gold? The worst case scenario, it could go down 20%. During the 1930s, it doubled. There'll be a flight to quality. Who will want to hold currencies? They'll want to get into gold and silver, or at least gold. And so that is the way to be positioned. And it's the only way. It's the only protection you have. I mean, look at housing. It's down an average of 32% in the United States. It's going to get down an average across the board, probably 50% before this is over. Now, most of the assets of people are in their homes. the value of their homes. And we don't know how much money they're going to have left. So why take that chance? If you're going to lose all the money in your house, I'm betting you should have the rest of your money in gold and maybe silver. So that's the way to go.
You know, Bob, it's funny when you go back to think in the late 90s or in the early 2000s, these same questions would arise. And, of course, then we were looking at lows in gold, and nobody wanted gold. Nobody could see ahead 10 years. In 95 and 96, nobody could see ahead 15 years or 9 years or 8 years to where we would be today. But when you really, as you always mention, when you look back to the history and see the progression of that we see, I mean, this is going to unfold. And again, the best way in order to preserve your wealth is by buying gold and silver. But the same thoughts were there so many years ago was the point that I was trying to make. And look how far better off people were buying gold 10 years ago than if they hadn't today. So they're much better off. Didn't you have another question, Bob?
Yeah, I got one left. And says, could you address the topic of how the underground economy or black market activities coincides with the mainstream economic data? Here is the situation that started me thinking about this scenario. Over the last few years, the number of barbershops have opened up in Queens, Long Island, New York, and they are all Russian ownership. The shops are in a fairly high rent area, well equipped, and of course are an all-cash business. A few days ago, while in the shop, everybody, patrons and barbers alike, all agreed on one thing, which is a rarity in the barber shop. We agree that it was nearly impossible to get a loan to start or sustain a small business. The owner of the shop is 23 years old, and I asked him, did you get a loan to start this business? I was certain of his answer, but I just wanted to hear his response, which was, no, I am Russian. He then proceeded to tell me that the number one business to get into was loan sharking, which, of course, is illegal and all cash-driven. He said the rate was $5,000 would cost you $250 a week, so 20% a month interest. More disturbing was who he revealed to be the majority of the clientele and of the loan sharks, and it was police and firemen. If true, that would be incredibly troublesome to have those vital service sectors indebted to foreigners. I remember as a youngster in the late 70s hearing about loan sharks and having it popularized through the character of Rocky Balboa in the 1976 Rocky movie. Now in 2010, it is possible that foreigners holding dollars will come back into the U.S. to set up cash business networks and secretly be subsidizing the lack of lending from the banks and provide cash loans to financially strapped Americans. Would this lead to even more inflation and an increase in M3? Or conversely, is it just slowly a slide into deflation? I think it's the latter. I think it's a slide into deflation. And it's interesting, and then you ask, where does a 23-year-old get the money, the cash, to open up his barber shop? And, of course, the money has been illegally obtained by the people who gave it to him or lent it to him.
I don't know, about a month or so ago, Bob, I saw a program about the Russians, and the comment was, it's difficult to do crime in Russia, but here in the States, why there's, it's easy for the Russians to come here and do these sorts of crimes and so forth because it's so easy. It's just easy pickings compared to what they had in Russia. So again, America is just another draw for criminals. And I'm not saying that's all Russians, and don't get me wrong, but is that a true statement?
It is.
From what I heard?
It is. No, that's true. And, in Russia for a crime you might get 15 years, and the U.S. you might get 4. And, the trade-off for major crime and loan sharking and drugs are major crimes. And, of course, they do professional murders as well. All criminal gangs do. And that's all over the world, mind you, not just